Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Rohr Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Lara Sturm.
All right, and welcome to episode 29 of Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast. I'm one of your hosts, and I am Lara Sturm.
And I'm Josh Rohr. Welcome to the show.
Wow. Way to sell it, Josh. So in this episode of Powerlifting Power Ballads podcast, I have decided to interview Josh because I don't know that everybody the two people that are watching or listening, kidding about that part too, I hope, know who Josh is other than, Josh Rohr, meet director in Georgia, coach, sometimes lifter. But there's more of a backstory there. So just to kind of break down things a little bit, right? You've been lifting for how long?
20 years this year. I started lifting in 2001.
Yeah, so 20 years lifting.
It's a long ass time.
Yeah, coaching for a long time as well, since 2008?
Well, officially, yeah, earlier kind of. So in college, I kind of coached the team as well. So we had a faculty advisor that was kind of our coach my freshman, sophomore year-ish. But then I kind of started coaching the team with my actual faculty advisor for exercise science kind of stepped in as our coach, and we kind of worked together as a collaboration. So I guess officially I moved to Georgia and started coaching in 2007, but I would unofficially, whatever you want to call it, I kind of say 2004.
All right. So you've been lifting a long time, coaching for a long time. I know for a long time in the state of Georgia, there wasn't a meet that was not a Josh Rohr run meet. You started running meets in 2011, is that right?
2010 was actually my first official meet that I ran.
That was close.
Yeah. Close.
So for the most part of the last 10 years, if there was a meet in Georgia, it was put on by Josh Rohr.
Yeah, for the most part. There were some other meets here and there that other meet directors ran, but I would say the majority of them I ran. Yeah.
Well, you brought up a couple other meet directors. I was one of them. There's a few in there, but I'm trying to think of a meet that was not Team Rohr that happened in the last 10 years other than in 2020.
There's been a few, I know David Goodwin hosted the military nationals. I believe Liz hosted a winter meet a couple times or once maybe. So right. there's been a few sprinkled in here and there.
Sprinkled like glitter, but not that everywhere. And you're also have served officially on USAPL, and you're a part of the executive committee. Did I say that right?
Executive community committee. Yeah. Yes. Since I believe I was elected in 2015, and I've been part of the executive committee ever since.
Right. And you also won the coveted Brother Bennett Award from USAPL.
I did. That was actually probably one of the bigger shockers to me. For those not familiar with the Brother Bennett Award, it's essentially the, highest award that you can earn in USA Powerlifting that kind of symbolizes the commitment to drug-free strength sport and the overall commitment to giving back to the sport as well. So that was, I've won a few national titles. I've won a few, local meets, and I would, medaled at IPF Worlds. And, I can honestly say that's probably the one that means the most, which surprisingly is, I don't know how I feel about that actually. I'm a little bit torn. It's a super big honor to win that, but, I've always kind of took pride in the fact that I was a lifter, I guess. So, having an award that is not from my own lifting is is different, I guess. But the fact that it is probably the one that means the most to me gives me all kinds of weird feelings, I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it kind of speaks to your commitment to the sport and, you know, your longevity in it and what you've contributed to the sport. So yeah. I think it's pretty huge.
It's pretty cool.
Pretty huge. Also, the person who put together Primetime wouldn't have happened.
It may have eventually happened, but yeah. So
it was your brainchild.
Yeah, I guess we can say that.
It was.
So we put together Primetime in 2016 Raw Nationals, and it's kind of been a staple ever since. Although, you know, with no nationals happening in 2020 and the reformat for 2021 with COVID going on, there won't be a Primetime this year either. But I do fully expect that to be back in 2022, assuming COVID's under control. So.
Right. So I kind of just wanted to take just that minute there to kind of establish who you are. So anyone who, you know,
I am Josh.
Yeah, I am Josh. Socially awkward. And yeah, but other than just being socially awkward, what those things are that, you know, have made you stand out in powerlifting, that you're not just another Instagram coach. So
no.
we've had that discussion as well. So just to give everybody a little bit of a background, like, can you say a little bit about like where you grew up and how you got into the sport of powerlifting in the first place?
Sure. I actually grew up in Apple Creek, Ohio, which is a very small village in Ohio. I would say a good amount of the population there is Amish. So I grew up on a dairy farm. I was not Amish. A lot of people always ask me that question, but a lot of our neighbors were. And I kind of got into powerlifting through football. Started lifting with the team just to kind of get better, because naturally I'm still not a very good athlete in terms of most sports. But I found that I was pretty good at lifting. I think a lot of that came from, you know, growing up on a farm and doing a lot of manual labor. But that was just kind of a natural fit for me. I was just naturally good at it. So started lifting with the football team. And I did play football, but then my senior year, my football coach kind of signed us up. Me and a couple other of the guys on the team signed us up for a powerlifting meet. It was just kind of a local high school was running it. It was not sanctioned. Looking back, like, the rules were a joke. I mean, as long as you went down at all and came back up with the squad, it was good, stuff like that. But that was my first intro to it. And, you know, in the very first meet I did, I ended up winning. So that kind of lit the fire and kind of reinforced the idea that I might be okay at this. So that's kind of where I got started.
So you're like, I'm not athletic, but I can do this.
But I can lift heavy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. As a farm boy.
Yep.
Very nice. So what you said your high school teacher was he your mentor for?
So I had two. So the football coach is the one that signed me up for my first powerlifting meet. But my English teacher in high school, sophomore English, Mr. Dobson, he's the one that kind of started working with me in high school. And just, you know, he would always work out after school, and I was always working out after school as well. And he kind of would see me in there, and, you know, eventually, you know, I don't know if it's you earn the respect of your peers after a while, but he basically, you know, said something to me like, you should work out with us. And that was just kind of like the circle of honor. We called it being in the loop. So it was him, and then the superintendent of the school, and then one of my buddies, Steve, that was a wrestler. We basically, the four of us would train together every day then, after school. And, you know, that was during the off season. During football season, I trained in the morning before school with a football coach. So those two guys are kind of the ones that kind of steered me in the right direction.
So I'm sorry, somebody was texting me at the same time this is going off. I'm like, come on. I had a great question and now it's gone. Damn it, Josh.
That happens.
Sorry.
Interviewing 101.
Right. But I have the questions that were sent to me earlier right here, and that's why I wanted to refer to them. So you got into it during high school, started doing meets. Was there a series of meets in high school?
There was a bunch of just random, like, open meets that different high schools did. And then they had a meet that they considered a regional meet. And then they had a meet that they considered the state powerlifting meet in Ohio. Again, none of it was sanctioned. None of it was official, but I don't know how this was all decided. So I did the regional meet, and I think I ended up third place. And then I did the state meet, and I ended up, I think, sixth place. But what they didn't tell us about the state meet was that, and at this point, I don't know anything. I'm lifting raw. I don't know anything about anything. But the state meet, lifters were allowed to wear gear if they wanted to. So I ended up placing, I think I placed sixth, but I was lifting against lifters that were in squat suits, knee wraps, bench shirts, and all this stuff. And, I never even knew what that was. Never saw it before. And honestly didn't even realize that, I realize now what a big deal that difference is. But at the time I saw people wearing it, but I didn't think anything of it. I'm just like, oh, okay. It's just a weird looking outfit. So that was kind of my high school, journey with powerlifting. And at that point, once I graduated, I just assumed powerlifting was done. I didn't realize there was anything beyond that. I thought it was I didn't know it was a real sport, I guess, at the time. And I guess it was, fast forwarding a little bit, I took a year off after high school and just kind of worked, saved some money, sold my Challenger.
That you still regret. Obviously.
Yeah, some parts of me regrets it, but parts of me doesn't. But anyway, so when I got to college, later then I ran into a girl that actually won the high school state meet in Ohio. And I just remember seeing her because I remember we weighed this. Well, she weighed just a little bit more than me. She was one weight class up, but I remember she out squatted me. And I found out after the fact that, she was wearing a suit, but, I never forgot her because, she out squatted me by a decent amount, won the meet, broke a bunch of the Ohio State records and everything. But anyway, I just happened to pass her on campus at Ashland University. And I'm like, hey, were you at the powerlifting meet? And she's like, yeah, I was there. And she's actually the one that kind of introduced me to USA Powerlifting because she told me that she was signed up to go compete at collegiate nationals. So I'm like, wow, interesting. So, she ended up, I believe her first collegiate nationals as a freshman, she ended up winning. But that's kind of how we started a team there. And she also threw track and field. So powerlifting was kind of her secondary thing. So she eventually kind of stuck with the throwing and not the powerlifting. And then we kind of just took the club and built it from there. And, that's kind of how I found USA Powerlifting and powerlifting past high school.
Powerlifting found you.
It found me.
Almost. So when did you first get into gear? College then?
Yeah, I was in college. So I did my first collegiate nationals as a freshman also, which was the same one she did. So I guess she was getting ready for another meet at the time to qualify for collegiate nationals when I actually met her. So I actually had time to qualify and go as well. So I qualified lifting raw, didn't know anything about it. And then my freshman year, I lifted at collegiate nationals raw before they had a raw division. And I think, man, I should have looked this up. I think I placed fifth at collegiate nationals against everybody else wearing gear. And then after that, I'm like, look, I gotta try this gear stuff out because if I'm going to be competitive, I got to put it on. So, eventually started playing around with gear, and by collegiate nationals the following year, I was in full gear and ended up winning collegiates as a sophomore.
Awesome. So just to go back just a little bit, your first state meet, was there someone who you lost to at your first
Son
state
of a
meet?
bitch. Yeah. So Uncle Jeremy, Jeremy Hartman and I both lifted at our first USA Powerlifting meet together, and we didn't know each other at the time. And he would bring that up.
Sorry.
And how they did that scoring, because there was only a few teenagers competing, is they scored everybody together by formula. So like I lifted as a 165 pounder. Jeremy was a 220 pounder, but pound for pound, they scored us against each other. And I ended up getting second there. Yeah. Jeremy beat me by a pretty decent margin. And he never lets me forget it. It's funny though. We didn't realize we were each other, I guess, until actually only a few years ago. We were just talking one day and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I think I got second at my first meet, the 2012 Ohio State Championship, whatever. He's like, I won the Ohio State Championship in the teenage division. And I'm like, I was in the teenage division. He's like, oh, I beat you. So it's kind of funny. Like we've been really good friends for years and never knew that we lifted against each other in our first meets.
That's pretty epic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you lifted all through college and started winning national champions?
You froze there. What'd you say?
Oh, sorry. So lifting all through college, you got better and started winning national championships in college?
Yep. So I won my first national title as a sophomore at Collegiate Nationals. And then my junior year, most of our team bombed out epically. So myself included. So I actually, didn't get a total as a junior, and then I won again as a senior.
Wow, that's awesome. So if you had to look back on some of those days, what were the new lifter mistakes that you made?
Basically everything we post on our social media as new lifter tips are because of mistakes that I've made or things I've learned from. I think the biggest thing is not doing enough mobility, not doing enough assistance work, kind of developing imbalances over time. Technique's always been really important to me. So I think that's something that, I've always prioritized. So I wouldn't necessarily say technique, but, just little things like being able to identify, different problems that are going to get worse over time if they're not addressed, I think is the biggest one.
So you have some issues now that you wish you addressed back then?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I struggle with, back issues here and there, primarily because I've, gotten away from doing core work. I have really tight hips, so I didn't do enough mobility like years ago. I work, obviously things can be addressed and fixed now, but it's just so much more work now to undo some of those things than to just kind of, even if I were to just maintain some of the levels I had back then of flexibility and mobility, that would just have been huge. But,
Right.
We were young college kids and we can do anything and stay up all night and not, worry about anything and be just fine.
Right.
And
recovery.
Yeah.
For someone else.
That sure becomes a lot harder to do when you get older.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why we're doing this is because this is your birthday episode coming up. So yeah, you're getting older. You turn old soon.
I do turn old soon. I am moving on up.
Youngster. So I know you set some American records in college.
Yep. I have to remember what they were. I broke this. No, I did. Did I break the squat record? I can't remember if I broke the squat record or not, but I did break the deadlift and the total American record in the collegiate division. And I know the deadlift at least was still an American record when the weight classes changed. I'm not sure if the total was or not.
So it stuck around for a while.
Yeah. And so the deadlift technically, I mean, it's kind of a loophole, but technically I still hold the deadlift American record for the 75 kilo weight class because that weight class is no more.
Right.
So it's retired, but
nobody. So you could get a t-shirt that says.
Yeah, there's definitely been lifters that have lifted more than that in the new 74 kilo weight class. So by all intents and purposes, that record doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
At least I know that in my heart, but on paper, it's still technically there.
And, that's actually what's important. So it's okay.
Yeah.
So as a young lifter, was music important to you then?
It was, but it was very different then. So I listened to a lot more. Well, you know what? Thinking back, it was still 80s stuff, but it was more like the heavier stuff. A lot of AC/DC, a lot of Metallica, um, some Limp Bizkit, stuff like that. That's not really 80s, but it was more heavier stuff, and it was really just, I guess, more, I don't know what you say, just angry.
Mm-hmm.
So like you want that controlled intensity. Earlier years, it wasn't controlled intensity, it was psycho intensity. Like, so like even in high school, like I used to have some of my training partners, like before a big lift, they would just start slapping the shit out of my face. And like, I would just like keep yelling at them to hit me until they would hit me hard enough, and I'd go do my attempt. You know, in college, I mean, so again, just for reference, these are examples of what not to do. I know in college as a freshman, I actually was doing my last heavy deadlift about 2 weeks before my first collegiate nationals. And I missed my last deadlift set. I missed the last rep, and that was my last heavy workout. And I just lost it. I took my CD player, I threw it across the room, it hit the wall and shattered. This is in the college weight room. They had steel doorways. I went over and like punched the steel wall as hard as I could. Broke my hand right here. The pinky finger, the knuckle still doesn't. There's still no knuckle there now. It's like there's no bump when there's supposed to be. But basically fractured my hand and was told not to compete. Obviously I did anyway, but you know, I had to hold the bar crooked benching and everything else. And it was just one of those things, like it was a really stupid thing to do, and it proved nothing. I wasn't at my best to compete because I had a freaking broken hand. So I think that's the thing I've gotten a lot better with. And I think that's where the music actually plays a bigger role for me now, is because I can use that to kind of up or down my emotional state, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it helps me control where I'm at more.
Right. And going full psycho is probably not really helpful at all.
No, yeah. And going for full psycho, I mean, you're missing commands. Like you're walking out so aggressively that you're taking 20 steps because you're losing your balance. It's just, yeah, there's really no good for going full psycho.
Right. So what got you to Georgia, and when did that happen?
Combination of Sherman Ledford and Caleb Williams got me to Georgia. So we were on spring break my senior year, driving through. We drove through Georgia on our way to Florida, just me and a couple of my friends. And we crashed at Caleb's place because, you know, I knew Caleb from college. He went to the College of Worcester, which was about 45 minutes from where I was going to school. So we trained together. But anyway, he had moved down here in 2006, I believe. So on our way down through in 2007, you know, we're just like, hey, we're going to crash at your place and train at Quest because, I had already used I ended up staying 5 years. I did a 5-year plan. So I had already used my 4 years of eligibility my first senior year. So my second senior year, I was just coaching. But a lot of my friends were still eligible and they were still competing. So on spring break, we came to Quest to train so they could train for collegiate nationals. And anyway, I had known Sherman for a while because he had helped me out at a lot of my, the collegiate meets that I won, and, helped me with my nutrition and stuff like that. Cause at the time, I was cutting weight pretty much year round, or at least dieting year round to maintain my weight. So he helped me out a lot with his supplements and everything. But anyway, getting back to my point here. So when we were training, Sherman was kind of helping us out a little bit, and he just, I was basically accepted into the graduate program at Ashland for exercise science. And I was planning to go to grad school and eventually, go on to try to get an internship with a collegiate sports team or NFL or somewhere. But he just kind of, as we're training, he's like, hey, if you ever just want to move to Georgia and train power lifters, you're out of the gym here, you're more than welcome to. And this was probably in early April. It would have been probably real late March, early April, because collegiates was, mid-April. And we graduated like beginning of May. But I was just like, that just kind of stuck with me. I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of what I want to do. That's almost just like bypassing the route of, going through the extra graduate program and everything. And, my goal was to work with athletes. And at the time, in 2006, 2007, powerlifting coach wasn't really a thing. It wasn't that big. If you had a powerlifting coach, it was basically your buddy that you worked out with, helping you out. So, that just stuck with me. And graduation came around, we graduated. And I just decided, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to move to Georgia and train powerlifters and see what happens.
Just kind of out of nowhere. Side comment that Sherman happened to have said.
Yeah. And, he was serious, but, I don't know. I never actually asked him if he thought that would ever happen or not, but, that's still where I coach out of, is Quest. Sherman's gym up there. It's just it was just one of those spur of the moment things that, it just felt right. And I just packed up all my stuff in my Dodge Neon and drove down to Georgia. And
were your parents horrified?
Not really. So at the time, my sister was moving to South Carolina to teach. My sister, I'm 2 years older than my sister, but I took a year off and I stayed a fifth year, and we both went to Ashland University. So we actually graduated in the same class. So we both moved out of state at the same time. And, they weren't really, they were pretty supportive of it. They didn't really, give us a hard time or say we shouldn't do that. They've always been pretty supportive of whatever we wanted to do. So, yeah, it's been good.
So you moved down here. Were you living with Caleb?
Yeah, I moved in with Caleb. I moved down the day of Doc Holloway's wedding. So when I got to Georgia, Caleb was at the wedding and he forgot to leave me a key. So I basically had to sit outside on the steps of the apartment complex for a couple hours till he came home. So that was my first night in Georgia.
And you're like, oh, is this an omen? Should I be here? What's going on?
I had those thoughts.
Yeah. All right. So then you started coaching people out of the gym.
Yep.
So, and I know that you've handled people in different meets and such over the years. Like, who are some of the most notable athletes that you have handled over the years?
Oof.
Other than me, of course.
Yeah, you and then everybody else.
That's all there is.
Yeah, there's been a few. You, Lily, Alicia Webb. You two are ones that, I work with a lot. Some of the lifters that I've just kind of handled that I don't really coach, Dennis Cornelius, Dave Ricks, Jeremy Hartman. Jeremy and I've been in each other's corner for as long as I can remember.
Okay. So specifically, who did you coach to your first Open National title champion and make one of the most critical deadlift calls in their history, jumping almost 90 pounds? And this person also thanks you this very day for helping make that choice. Please elaborate on this story. There you go.
Got it. Well, that again is Uncle Jeremy. It was 2007 Open Nationals. He was having some really bad stomach pain leading up to the meet and just really wasn't 100%. And after his opening deadlift, I just told him, I'm like, look, man, let's just pat. He had the highest deadlift of everybody, and he was, going to need a big deadlift to win. So after his opening deadlift, I'm just like, look, man, you're in pain. You don't need to pull a second, just pass, and we'll put on whatever we need to win. Just man up one time and win the national title. And he did. Like you said, I think it was right about 100-pound jump, or more. Yeah, I think it was from 644 to 755, I believe, was what he jumped to, and that's what he needed to win. And he pulled it and tied and won on body weight.
Dang, nice. Well, I think there was a second person that you helped win a open national title on a big jump deadlift as well.
Are you talking about you?
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure. I knew you.
She's like, is you fucking with me?
Yeah. What year was that?
Was that 2015 or 16? I don't remember. It was one of those. It was Baton Rouge, I think.
Yeah, I honestly don't even remember where it was,
the
but
only
I do remember
open national title I won.
I do remember you were neck and neck the whole way through, and I knew like you had to have a good day to beat the lifter you were going against, and you did. And the number, I'll tell you this too. That third attempt was probably about the limit that day. But it was exactly what you had left, and exactly, luckily, what we needed. And you pulled for the win and won your first open title.
I was not having a super awesome day. I was kind of like wanting to flee the building. And I remember you came to me and said, "You can leave. It's okay. You can leave." And I was like,
powerlifting's not for everybody.
Right. And I think there was something else that was going on. Like I had missed my second deadlift. I'd lost my balance. And then I needed it was like a big jump. It was 60 or 70 pounds, was such a big jump for me. But you put it on and then I got it. But then the girl who I was going against, they were still contesting her third. And so you were about to put in another attempt to, if they made me do it again or something. And I remember you saying, "Sit down, chill out. I don't know if this is over." And I'm going, "What the fuck? No, what do you mean that this is not over? What? I can't pull again. That'd be what?" But I guess they didn't let her pull again, so that worked.
Yeah,
it was a weird moment.
I'm trying to remember what happened there. I don't know if it was a lot number violation or something. I really can't remember what that, but I do remember there was just kind of like some chaos there that, they basically the sequence of events didn't happen per the rule book. So things were allowed to proceed without things being done in order. And that's kind of where the cluster came up. So
That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
So, and then you've also coached at a national level not a national level, international level at several championships, different places.
Yeah. My first one was actually 2005, the year I bombed out. So at Junior Worlds, I was an alternate, but it was in Indiana, so it was a short drive. So I actually was on the staff as an assistant coach there. That was my first time. And then was it 2000? You would know better than me. I was an assistant was it 2012 and 2013? Is that right?
I think it was 14.
14 and 15. Yeah, it was kind of close.
Yeah.
It was Denver, Colorado, and
Pilsen,
South
Carolina. No. Czech Republic.
Pilsen, Czech Republic. Yeah, that was
an epic trip.
Yeah, it was.
That was an epic trip. And during that trip, you earned your title of, he's like, Josh's lightweight brew from the drinking game that happened. I don't drink, just for the record, but I did go to the bar and watch this. It was really great. And there was like this game where each table was competing against each other for ounces of beer drunk. And I guess you could also compete at the table itself. So there was a lot of competitive drinking going on. And I remember you dancing with strangers.
I got my arse handed to me.
Yes, the Masters, the women's Masters team literally drank Josh under the table.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, Lara Stryland's, pretty serious.
Oh yeah, she's serious, but I wasn't. But I don't even think she was buzzing by the time I was like done.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna be. I wasn't. Okay, let's put it this way: I wasn't expecting to win, but I wasn't expecting to get crushed.
Crushed. Yeah, and I think that wasn't the first and only night that happened, but that was probably the most notable.
It seems to happen too often. It's like the word gets around, like, oh, we can drink Josh under the table and make him look like a fool here pretty quick. Let's do it.
Yeah, but you're a happy drunk. So I mean, there are some people that are just like,
don't get me wrong. One of those. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy it. I enjoy myself, and I enjoy losing even. but it just, I would like to be a little competitive.
That's just your competitive self. You can't help it.
Got to start training.
I think you already are, truthfully. So meet directing, that's a thing that you did for a long time and have kind of late during COVID, especially gotten out of that. What kind of, can you talk a little bit about your evolution there from beginning meet director to, going from the creator of Primetime and putting on epic meets where you could do the Superman and win Josh Rohr's money was a normal thing?
Yeah. The whole reason I started running meets is, basically just having conversations saying, man, I wish they would do this. I wish they would do that. And then, just roundabout people saying, well, just why don't you quit complaining and do it yourself? And that's kind of where I got started. And just, I wanted to put on meets that were very, just trying to think of everything, like everything a lifter would want to experience. And thinking about it, from the lifter's perspective, like what would just be the most awesome experience as a lifter. And part of that was, just my own, coming up, like the first meets I did, there were the high school shit show meets, and, I didn't know any different, and I had a great time. They're great memories, but, that was the first meet. That's the meets that I'm always going to remember is my first meet. And I was like, what if I can just put together these awesome meets that when people have their first meet experience, like they legit remember it as one of the best meets they've ever been to, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. And, I think to some degree, I think we may have got close to that, but, then as it just evolved, like, the sport started growing, there was getting more lifters involved, the membership numbers were growing. So, the meets were filling up. So, there was a little bit of actual revenue to mess with. So I started giving out prize money and things like that, just to kind of, again, give back to the lifters that are, putting in their time to get better and to reach that high level. So, it gave, the idea was to, we have a lot of great lifters in Georgia, but there's a lot of times, they don't do the local meets. They just go to nationals and worlds and whatnot. Well, adding the prize money aspect to the local meets, well, now you get to share the platform with some of those elite level lifters because they're there, it's worth their time to do the meet and, make a little bit of money. And then, I think as a new lifter, to say, man, I got to share the platform with, so-and-so. So I just thought it made a really neat atmosphere, and that's kind of how that started and evolved, I guess. And then, fast forward to the 2016 Raw Nationals, had no idea it was going to be quite that big. But, the idea was to, we had been talking about doing a primetime and just, taking the very, very top level open lifters and putting a spotlight on them and making it one platform and just all eyes on them. And, that just kind of, there was definitely a lot of opposition to that, the idea and the concept of it. But I just knew in my mind, like once people would, if they would just give it a chance and see what it would be like it would be awesome. And I think after that was over, super late nights, like scheduling needed some work. Like we didn't get it exactly right, but just the atmosphere was something like I've never seen before. Just standing room only, people on chairs in the back of the room trying to see, because it's so, just so many people were there. And, that's kind of just been, something that, I was dog tired for so long after that and almost probably depressed afterwards just from so much work. But, that's still one of probably the proudest moments of seeing that come to fruition, and the fact that it's still happening now. People just kind of saw what it was and wanted to keep it going.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that meet very well. It was epic. That was some epic shit.
Yeah.
And some big squats and some late nights, and there was a lot of work that went into that. And I think I remember no, I guess that was maybe another meet. It's just seeing you sleeping on the cement floor like a corpse, and like, oh, okay, that's normal.
Yeah, people just like stepping over me. I mean, it was a mess. But I did get smart though. I did bring an air mattress eventually, And in the little break room where the staff could go eat, I just put an air mattress up underneath the table and took a nap there a few times.
Because that was a several day long meet, and I know how much goes into it coming up to it. And how many lifters was it? Like 1,100 or something?
1,063 was the final number.
Yeah. And that was the biggest meet to the record.
At that time, that was the biggest meet. I know the following year, Raw Nationals was in Orlando, Florida, and they also coincidentally had exactly 1,063 lifters.
No way.
So we consulted some of the coaches around to determine the tiebreaker, and we decided that because I actually won both tiebreakers, so I got to keep the title as largest meet. The first tiebreaker was body weight. I was the lighter meet director. And the other tiebreaker was I did it first. So,
right, because the lot number.
Yeah, right. So
very nice.
Yeah. So, but that was broken in Spokane, Washington. The following year, they did. Can't remember what their final number was, but they did beat it by a few.
I mean, meets were getting extremely large for a little bit there, and then the qualifiers getting a little bit more stringent kind of brought the numbers into.
Didn't really bring them down. It just really made it more competitive to get in.
It didn't let it grow exponentially more.
Yeah.
That's about it.
So the members were growing, but just the more people you get in, the better everybody gets. So we have to, keep raising those standards to get to that national meet.
So where are you now with things during COVID? What are you up to?
I'm in my basement.
I didn't mean like literally. I mean like as a lifter, as a coach, as a meet director.
So as a coach, still kind of business as normal, business as usual. A lot more shift towards the online coaching. Doing a lot more virtual stuff, coaching in real time virtually, just to kind of keep that separation. As a lifter, I've been training in my basement. Training is the wrong word. I've been working out in my basement, just kind of doing stuff here and there. In terms of running meets, kind of got to the point, just got a little burned out. That's the downside of trying to make everything perfect, is you burn yourself out. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. So, I'm kind of stepping back just, from running meets this year. COVID obviously played a role in that, but, the big, I guess, eye opener for me was at our Georgia State meet. I've ran that meet for the last 10 years now, and there's a big team aspect there. And most of our team always competes, and it's just becoming, it's always been obvious, but I've never quite realized, I guess, the fact that I'm not really part of the team during the meet because I'm running the meet. And that's something that just kind of slapped me in the face, I guess, in 2020. Seeing lifters that I coach day in and day out, I'm with, year round getting ready. And then I'm seeing the videos of them competing and celebrating, and I'm not part of it. So I think that's just kind of what kind of hit me, is like, I need to step back a little bit and kind of focus on what I really, truly enjoy. And that's, coaching and being there in the moments.
That's awesome. So what about your involvement with the EC? What does the EC person, I'm like not even sure what to call you, an EC member, executive committee member, actually do?
Well, basically, it's a good question. Basically, you see the day-to-day running of the organization, I guess, between the NGB meetings. So, when things come up, for example, like the new divisions that were just created, that's something that we had been working on kind of behind the scenes for a while. Just figuring out ways to better the sport, to create more opportunities for lifters. And then, anytime there's anything that, obviously we're under the umbrella of the IPF. So if there's IPF rule changes or calendar changes or, anything like that, we have to then pivot and figure out, okay, well, what are we going to do with our national meets? Where are they going to move to? Those are just a few examples. I mean, there's some other things that I can't really talk about because they're, kind of more, I don't know what the word is, more fragile, I guess, that, it's not really public knowledge. So just stuff like that, basically trying to keep the organization running and everything working smoothly. And there's a lot of bullshit that goes on that you would not want to even know about, but that's part of what the EC does.
Deals with bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. I can understand.
And I mean, obviously I shouldn't say that as a blanket statement. I mean, there is some bullshit stuff that happens, but a lot of the work is very, obviously I'm still doing it. It's important to me. And at the end of the day, somebody has to do it. And I take pride in the organization. So I want to, as long as people are willing to, I guess, keep reelecting me, I'm willing to be part of that and kind of help guide the ship, I guess.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I know we've gone way past what our normal length of our podcast is, so I will just wrap up. So other notable achievements that maybe we haven't talked about, anything that comes to mind?
Well, I am a mediocre water skier. I really enjoy water skiing. I really enjoy playing Texas Hold'em poker. I know this is not the answers you're searching for, but I'm gonna say what I want to say. Let's see. That's about it.
All right, I have one last question.
Oh boy.
So, who called your lifetime meet PR deadlift number?
Probably it was a combination of probably Sherman Ledford, Tony Cardella, but definitely not Jeremy Hartman.
Definitely not. I know it wasn't me because there was one meet that I called your number and you were like, why did you put more in the bar? You're all mad at me.
Yeah, it was, I believe it was the 2012 Arnold, 672 is what my PR deadlift is in competition.
And it was definitely not Jeremy Hartman.
It was definitely not Jeremy Hartman.
Huh.
He might tell you otherwise though.
Yeah, he might have led me to believe that.
No, so full disclosure, I am sure it was him, but I actually have no proof it was him because I was sitting in my chair listening to my headphones, and between him, Tony Cardella, and Sherman, they turned in my third attempt deadlift. So I don't know who it was, but I'll take his word for it. Nobody else has claimed that they picked that number, so we'll say Jeremy did it.
All right. Uncle Jeremy for the win all the way through this podcast.
Yeah.
It's pretty epic.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, I feel like our listeners got to know you a little bit better. And I certainly learned a couple things I didn't know. So
this is weird. I'm not used to being the interviewee.
Ha ha.
Yeah.
Well, and I can also say Josh does a mean stomp dance. I don't even know what to call that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's more of just a
drunken stupor,
convulsing around.
But did you ever listen to Rubber Band Man?
I did. Yep, definitely know
Great
that song. Just didn't know the name and the artist, but great song.
There you go. Now you know.
Now you know.
Now you know. Did you want to recap with your meat songs, or you want to pick that up next week?
We'll pick that up next week. We'll take a break on it.
All right.
We'll pick all that up next week.
All right. Well, this was the episode where Josh Rohr
strikes again.
Your Barbara Walters moment. I feel like I should make you cry still.
Yeah. You almost did when you were asking. I don't remember what we were.
Brother Bennett.
Yeah, there and the being coaching at the state meet and stepping back from running meets. You had a little bit of tear creeping in there, a few spots.
All right. I'll work on it.
Good job.
All right. Well, listeners, thanks for watching, listening, and we'll get out of here.
Later.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.